G'day, g'day, g'day. I'm Sam.
And I'm Paul.
And we're from Bendigo Vinyl, and we're going to be having a chat to you guys today about this week in music. Yeah.
Yes, we are.
Everything that's happened this week that we think's important, Paul.
Yeah, everything. Well, like we say everything we can remember that was important that might have happened this week or the week before.
And if we've missed anything, yes, we are going to talk about it. And if we've missed anything, please always comment below. But to comment below, I think you have to subscribe. So click on that button there, and then you don't. You could do either. Please do both. All right. Welcome / what's on this week was the start of my little bit of paper here, Paul. What's happened in music this week? All right. This one, it's a couple of weeks old now, but we're starting to have more of the songs trickle through from Europe. Yes. I'm obviously talking about Eurovision. This is your story of the week, Paul.
Look, Eurovision. So I think I heard a bunch of them last week. We caught up. We watched a bunch of the live performances of some of them. I know you've got some thoughts on Australia, but before we get to that, I think this might be the best year of Eurovision in quite some time. I think it's phenomenal. Norway theoretically could have it in the bag. Go and watch. Give that wolf a banana.
Yeah, subwoofer. They're called.
The whole
dressed
thing.
like wolves, like Reservoir Dogs, but like if Reservoir Dogs were wolves. If that doesn't make sense to you, Reservoir Wolves. If that doesn't make sense to you, then you haven't been watching Eurovision. And before that wolf eats my grandma, give that wolf a banana, give that wolf. Because it makes perfect sense to me, Paul.
Yeah, it does. Look, it's a banger. It's a genuine banger. All banger, no mash. The song so we watched and listened to a bunch of them. It was fine.
Yep.
I then had a bunch of them on at the house, and there was a line, and I might just get you to put it up on the screen.
I will put it up on the screen.
I was like, did I hear that? I don't eat meats. I eat salad and... Yeah, anyway, that's a Eurovision song.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
Yeah.
Who are we sending,
obviously,
Sam?
they got rid of that word, didn't they?
There was I don't eat meat, I eat salad then. There was that. That's what they've replaced.
Oh, the little look.
That with.
Okay, so who are we sending, Paul?
Yeah, who are we sending? Because I didn't watch Australia this
We're sending Sheldon Riley with the song Not the Same, which is exactly what Europe wants to hear at the moment, is a song about difference. But no, it's a great song. It's got a great message behind it, as a lot of the songs that were on Australia Decides were. My issue is not with the song particularly. My issue is more with the fact that they called this show Australia Decides, and then the voting lines were cut 8:45 Sydney time, when the show was only half finished. So you couldn't even vote for anything past. They eventually opened it up, but it was only open for about 4 or 5 minutes. Plus the fact that the Australian voting, the public voting, overwhelmingly voted for the band out of Perth, the alt operatic metal, black metal operatic. They had about the pop art band. That's how they describe themselves, Voyager. Overwhelmingly, Australia voted for Voyager, and they got quite close to winning. But because it's a half jury vote, half Australia Decides vote, Sheldon got through because he got quite a few points from the jury, who made some real head scratches, I thought, when they gave G Nation the lowest amount of points, which was this. Check that one out. They're an excellent band out of Adelaide. Shout out to Adelaide.
Shout out to Adelaide.
And we'll get to why Adelaide needs some more love later in the show. Yeah. But six of these girls, pitch perfect, amazing choreography, and the jury, which included Savage Garden's Darren Hayes, absolutely snubbed them. And I'm still dirty on him about it. I've even bought tickets to his show next year so I can tell him face to face. I don't know if that's how that works. But and Jaguar Jones as well, who had an amazing track. That did quite well with the jury. Voyager didn't get as many jury votes, and in the end, even though they smashed it out of the park with the Australia Decides votes, didn't get through. So my thing for SBS next year if Australia's not allowed to decide, don't call it Australia Decides. Call it Jury Decides. Call it Darren Hayes Decides, okay? Because then I won't be so upset when you send somebody through that nobody really even voted for. So good luck to Sheldon. His song is, it's a thing, and it sounds just as good as any of the other songs. But I'll be voting for Subwoofer this year.
Oh, Subwoofer. It's such a good track.
It's a great track.
Do yourself a favor, even if you're not a Eurovision person, listen to all the songs that have been released so far. There's some quality stuff in there, and it's so much genuine fun. Good songs, not just like, oh yeah, that does well at Eurovision. There's that too, which is great.
Yeah,
but give yourself, do yourself a favor and have a listen.
As Molly would say.
What was your story of the week, Sam?
My story of the week is a band that I'm really into called the Deftones, and a bit of controversy. So the Deftones, their bass player, whose name I just want to super confirm, Sergio Vega. Now, unfortunately, the Deftones, their original bass player, Chi Chang, passed away many years ago, and Sergio Vega had been their bass player for the last 12 or 13 years. Now, a lot of people assumed that he was part of the band. Apparently not. So a photo went up during the week, which he wasn't in the band photo, and obviously that's pretty unusual. And then he did a video on his Instagram kind of going into some of the reasons why he wasn't in the band photo. He wanted a little bit of certainty through COVID, because obviously they couldn't tour or anything. He was actually a contracted session musician, so he was paid to play the parts and be with them, and he would get his contract improved slightly every album cycle, but he was always under the understanding from an initial discussion he had with the band that eventually he'd be brought in and he would be a full band member.
Yeah.
Apparently that never happened. And he flew out to help them with some band stuff. They kind of gave him some promises, according to him, because we haven't heard from the rest of the Deftones as of yet. They gave him some assurances that they would get him a better contract. He'd become a part of the band, and that never eventuated. And then lawyers got involved. And he was very gracious and was very happy and wanted to be very thankful and lovely about his time with the band. And he's got another band that he's with, the band that he had before the Deftones. So he's still making music and that sort of thing. But it was just a little bit shocking as a fan of the band that they kind of treated him that way. And it kind of flew in the face of some. Do you remember that Metallica film, Paul, Some Kind of Monster?
Yeah, it was Some Kind of Monster.
Well, let's talk about this tomorrow then. Or do you want to take time out?
No, I don't have time right now.
Okay.
It's a bit of an infamous film. It was the therapy film where Metallica went and got help with the therapist to try and help them, because Hetfield and Ulrich particularly were really, really going at each other. But they add a bass player in that film. And he's brought in immediately, full member. He's $1 million in the bank account. The lawyers tried to stiff him and say he only gets 5% of voting in the band. And the band was very much no, he's part of the band. He's going to get, it's going to be 25% for each of us. All four of us have an equal voting right in anything that goes on. As well as you were talking about the Foo Fighters as well, Paul. They just added their keyboard player.
Yeah. And I only noticed because, again, there was a band picture on a tour poster. Again, more about that later, but there was a band picture. I was like, oh, new guy in the band. And I know Green Day, for example, there's only 3 of them on pictures, but the people that have been touring with them for pretty much since American Idiot, they just gradually get added to the band, as you've done 2 tours with us, let's just make it happen.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting, as you said, flies in the face of maybe what you knew. And particularly when there's such a big deal with musicians getting screwed by labels, execs, distribution, all this sort of stuff, when you sort of want musicians to look after each other and, don't then screw over people. Session musicians are a thing and they should be, and that's a valid way to earn a living. But the life of a session musician is very different to the life of somebody who's got a project and is in a band, and the way you make money and stuff is very different. So sort of doing one but not really is a bit of a tough gig, I think. It's a shame to hear.
Yeah, 100%. I think, it's really tough. He obviously did them a favor during a pretty dark time, and kind of assurances were made and that sort of thing, and like how long's a piece of string, but that the guy was in the band for like a decade without really being in the band is always just that was really weird to hear. And like we haven't heard from the Deftones, so we'll keep you posted if they say anything, but it seems to be kind of folded in pretty acrimoniously. So that's my story of the week, Paul.
Yes.
And now we're coming to another segment, which according to my bit of paper says a difference of opinion. So,
okay.
Paul, you had a question, and we were talking about it earlier, and you wanted to ask me about it.
So here's the thing. So Sam, you produce audio, engineer sound, and I've seen a lot of videos lately, and I watch them all the time, and I thoroughly enjoy them, where a band or an artist goes in and performs / records at one of your big studios, your Abbey Roads, your Electric Ladylands, those sorts of things. These studios with a bit of mystique and myth about them. And it does get mentioned, like, oh, this was done here, this was done here. Oh, this is a big deal because it was, recorded or whatever. But again, we've also spoken about how recording music is so much more accessible than it used to be. It's so much easier to get decent quality gear and get some good sounds out of it. So I guess my question is, because I think we might have a difference of opinion, is what's the point in these big studios? Like, are they still relevant more than just being, like a brand name on something?
Yeah. I think the thing that brought us really to talking about it was, and check this out, guys, because this has gone up
so good
just recently, was Yeba recording her song Louis Bag at Electric Ladyland Studios. It's like a live cut, and she's managed to get Questlove on the drums and Pino Palladino on the bass.
Friends are falling off, talking shit for no reason. It's Robin season.
Amazing version of that classic song. It was in my brother's Hottest 100 top 10 last year. Really, really great album. But yeah, check out that song there. And I think Electric Ladyland and let's say Abbey Road as well. There's a studio in Germany that Bowie recorded at, that the name escapes me at the moment. Real World Studios in Bath in England, Peter Gabriel's studio. I think these places, because what's being cut on, cut the term of you cut a record, what's being cut at some of these studios, there's a real inspiration when you step on the kind of the hallowed grounds of Abbey Road. You walk across, the pedestrian crossing that, John and Paul and Ringo and George did. And that you're entering a space that, the history of music was changed because of what happened inside those places. And as an artist, that would be incredibly inspiring for people to do. I think also another thing might be the mic lockers. Like, a lot of these microphones aren't made anymore. And there's a lot of gear and equipment at these studios that's quite old and is, irreplaceable. And again, that's also really inspiring if you're, singing into the same Neumann mic that Frank Sinatra sang into. I know I was talking to you earlier, Paul. Yeah. I was lucky enough to visit Denmark Street in London, pre-pandemic. And there's a shop there called Regent Sounds, and you go and you have a chat to some of these guys. And that used to be a recording studio, and Black Sabbath cut Paranoid there, and Nevermind the Bollocks was recorded there, the Sex Pistols album. And the little spot out the back where you try out your guitars, that's where Jimi Hendrix used to rehearse when he first arrived with the Experience back in the mid 60s, which is just like amazing. And I know even like when I was picking up a guitar and playing my bad power chords and my pentatonic runs, I felt more inspired because I knew the history of what had happened there. I think sometimes artists perform a little bit better because they're in these places, but sometimes also it can be a little bit overwhelming. You're singing through that microphone, you're playing that guitar that somebody had, you're on that patch of carpet that Jim Morrison was on or whatever, and that could really overwhelm people. And maybe you prefer like people that, this is going to sound really weird, but people that go to work and they don't shit on the toilet at work, they have to do it at home because it's just too much stress. It's kind of like that, right? Like, you don't want to you don't want to mess up in these studios. You don't want to make a mess.
Yeah.
So you come home to record. I think also it's really expensive to record in some of these places now. So it's a lot cheaper to get a really, really good demo at home. And then, you might be able to afford like a week of studio time rather than back in the day where it was like a mountain of cocaine and you had the studio booked out for 2 months and like money was no object. And then you cut rumors, for example, it's things have changed a lot there, but I like this version a lot better, the Yeba version, if we're talking about that specifically, than what was on the record. Yeah. And like the studio has to play a part in that.
Yeah, I just wonder, and like, I guess you mentioned like the mics and all, a lot of them aren't made anymore. And I know there's reasons for, just like the parts aren't available, or, back in the day when they were putting some of these things together for the first time, I knew they weren't using things that were built for that purpose. They were sort of reappropriating chips and, circuits and stuff that were meant for different purposes, and they don't get made anymore. So they theoretically can't make them exactly the same, but are they actually that much better? Like, or is it all the inspiration and the mystique and the, which I think there's something in that. There's something in the environment that you play and record in that, even if it doesn't necessarily, like, you can't pick out a frequency that wasn't there before, it still makes you feel better about it. Like, it still makes you a bit more excited.
I think for me, it goes to the spirituality of music potentially, that when you're in a place and music happens and it happens at a high level, do the molecules change? Are the atoms affected by what has happened in that space before? And I think, without getting too that's not very scientific. That's like complete, that's
bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. You talk to, I've seen interviews with Jacob Collier and stuff, and these people that know absolutely everything there is about the mathematics of music, but then they will also talk about there's just something not tangible about the magic of it when you're in a place with other people. And maybe that's the other thing as well. When you're at home in a studio and you can have people come in and you can collaborate, but a lot of it is more of a solo endeavor. There's an advantage to being able to go to Electric Ladyland and go, oh yeah, Questlove he's doing the Tonight Show tonight, but he's got a bit of time before it tapes. He'll just come down and play drums on your thing because he's just at, Fifth Avenue or whatever. Like, I don't know the street names, but the location and knowing that, having particular hangouts. I think the history of music, especially in New York and in London, on Denmark Street, where Bowie and, Mark Bolan and everybody used to hang out, and Elton John and that sort of thing. And then in New York around CBGB's and Electric Light, and Greenwich Village when Dylan was coming up, it's about spaces where music and people can come together. And I think there is still a place for the studio in that. But then there's nothing stopping people from creating those spaces in their own kind of cities and homes as well. Have a space where it's fun to hang out and collaborate and play music with other people, and something will happen. Maybe it's more about the people than the microphones.
Yeah, I think you might have a point there. And I think there's still potentially a difference here, but I think maybe my viewpoint now might be that these studios, can you guys hear that truck in the background? I'm so sorry. We're just going to, garbage truck. Welcome to YouTube. It's done.
It's about the space you're in.
Well, yeah. So, that's, at a studio, that wouldn't happen. No, but maybe
it's all soundproofed.
We can cut or not. That can be left in. We'll see what happens. So I think that my opinion now is probably that maybe studios in these big or, important for other reasons other than a microphone, studios might be something that is good, and maybe it's something that as an industry newer artists are missing out on, because recording is accessible at the home level, and because it's still relatively inaccessible at studios. It costs a lot of money. A large part of old music contracts was oh yeah, you'll get paid from this, but then the first bunch of money you get paid, you have to pay back your studio time. And that would eat up a lot of the profits that artists would make. So you can avoid that by doing it yourself. But is there the loss of this sort of collaboration? And, as you said, it's a very personal endeavor. You can get the same sounds. You could record a pretty good demo, for example, but is there something to be said for having that space that not just provides equipment, your gear, your sound producer, whatever, but also some inspiration and like a collaboration space? Like, is there something to be said for that maybe we're missing out on, or we've not improved enough upon, like we have home studio setups, for example?
Yeah, I think it's going to be an ongoing question, because I think some of these big studios, although they're not as busy as they used to be, I don't think they're going to go away. And I think COVID, where people couldn't perform in front of audiences and they kind of retreated back into studios, showed that there's still a place for them. But let us know in the comments below, is it an either or thing? Is it like home studio or real studio? Or is it like maybe you combine a little bit of both? And this might be a good segue, Paul, because we're going to get into the next thing. Anything I say can and will be held against me, where we do some retractions, flips, and reviews of things around the place. I want to talk about the new Gang of Youths album with you, Paul, because you're very passionate about them. The new album, Angel at Realtime. Now, I did some research into it because it's such a great sounding album, like how they went about that. And they eschewed the studio and they hired a big warehouse, which anybody that's been in a warehouse and clapped their hands know that acoustically that's not a very good environment. Yeah. I'm going to do it, and then I'm going to add like a warehouse reverb. All right, cool. That's going to be edited in. You will have heard that. And it's like not the best place to record music, but they spent the money that they would have got on a studio on a bunch of gear, like microphones and different things, and they recorded everything themselves, and they had so much extra time to sit in the warehouse together and record. And I think what we got was a really amazingly like full album, Paul.
Yeah, it was huge. And I remember was it on the Zane Lowe show or there was a show where they were talking about how, like that's been part of their sound, that it's been busy and there's lots going on. They've always have a violinist in the band that's, it's actually part of the band and isn't just like your token violinist. They've got, it's a relatively large band. It's not the 3 or 4 piece. There's a lot going on, and they do lots of things, and they've got real drums and they're sampling at the same time. And they were going to
went to Budapest to record. They went to Budapest to record all their string parts, like with the orchestra over there, which blew my mind.
Yeah. But they were meant to be toning it back on this. Yeah. And I'm not sure that's come across. Like there's so much going on. But it sounds great. And again, like, I've been a fan of Gang of Youth for a while. Love all their stuff. I think I can see a progression, which is exciting. I think this is a little bit different, though it still gets some of the same things, some of the same Gang of Youth tropes, if you will. But I enjoy those tropes, so I don't mind. But yeah, you probably didn't quite get as into Gang of Youth as I had, Sam.
No. Then this might be where we get into the kind of flips and retractions, and what I say can be used against me. What's been used against me this week is that I absolutely adore this album. I think it's an excellent, excellent album, and I haven't felt that way about a Gang of Youth album before. And they've released some really good albums. Yeah. And so Paul's like, "What's going on? Like, I can't believe it took you so long to get onto this." And I was really, really pleasantly surprised. I think lyrically there's such a strong through line. Obviously a lot of it's dealing with the death of his father, but then his father wasn't a perfect character, although he had such a big impact on David. Like everybody calls him David. Yeah, no, a big impact on Dave. It's like I'd never heard him called David before. I just called him David. Like, I meant Dave. I'm sorry, Dave. So like such a big impact on Dave, but he was a flawed character. And I think the way the album tracked was that every song that went through, and then it kind of like there's a real climax for me at an amazing just Dave and the piano song called Brothers, and you start to understand how flawed a character his father was. And how maybe that has impacted how Dave has like interacted with other people and how he's interacted with his own relationships. It was just like really, really honest, hard on its sleeve stuff that I know Gang of Youth have been doing for such a long time, but I don't know, for whatever reason, maybe because I lost my grandmother during COVID, and I don't think she was as flawed a character as Dave's dad, but we all lost people during the COVID times, or we know people that did, whether it was to COVID or whether it was just because it was 2 years, and it's a long time. Yeah. And I think it really resonated with me that this amazingly like lovely, beautifully crafted album about losing somebody and how you come to terms with the grief, and the fact that you carry that around with you and how it informs how you interact with others going forward, and maybe how it informed how you interacted with people in the past. It was just, I was really, really blown away by this album, Paul.
I'm so excited about how blown away you are by it, because I think they deserve it. As I've said, love their older stuff, and I probably had some of that similar connection that you've found in this album, with, Go Farther and Lightness, for example, or Magnolia, like some of the singles off the Positions. But I'm glad and I think I heard Spirit Boy was the single that came out like a couple of days before the album was released, and I heard that and went, Sam's actually gonna like this. And then when you listen to the album, I know you listened to it while doing some deliveries for Bendigo Vinyl in the car.
I did
on release day,
local free deliveries,
and I was getting messages. I was like, yes, they've done it. And I think you're right, like there's definitely a connection, and like there's something relatable about each song that feels very personal. And I know that I feel like, Brothers, for example, like we're probably both relating to that, but for different reasons. If you'd like us to talk more about Gang of Youths, leave us a comment, because I would like to talk more about it, and specifically this album. And one of the things I really enjoy is like the cultural impact or the social impact of music, and those connections that are more than just the music. So I think there's some interesting things to say about that, in addition to them
100%.
going to Budapest to record strings and getting, choirs from the Pacific Islands and stuff like that to do parts, and all the layers and intricacies that Gang of Youths give you.
Yeah, we might. Yeah, let's break it down. I think if people are happy, and write in the comments. Also, let us know what you thought of it, and we can talk about that in maybe a longer review as well, and share some of your thoughts. I've got a little bit more to say about it. There's also some stuff that I just really want to hear out of the next album as well, Paul, that I'll talk to you about.
Yes.
But if we do a full review, we'll get into that. I have a retraction though, Paul, and I did say this. I said this on a YouTube video where I said, the YouTube video was titled "Should We Cancel the Wiggles?" over their Like a Version cover of Elephant. Now, I said Emma Wiggle, Paul, didn't do a very good job on the drums, and I want to apologize directly to Emma. And I know it's keeping her up at night. But I'm really, really sorry. It's actually a surprisingly hard drum beat. Like I'm a guitarist that's trying to learn drums at the moment. And I was like, this can't be that hard. It's like, dun, gung, gung. And then I sat down with it. It's got this kind of like swing triplet feel that like I really, really struggled with, because I play a lot of straight eights rock and roll. And this like kind of had a bit of a thing. And I was like, actually, that is really, really difficult. And if you're used to just kind of playing fruit salad and hot potato, like she did an excellent job. Do I like that it won the Hottest 100? No, but that's not the Wiggles' fault. It's definitely not Emma Wiggles' fault. She did an excellent job on the drums. I'm very sorry, Paul.
Yep.
Emma.
Well done, Sam. And this is why we have anything I can say anything I say can and will be used against me. At some point, we'll get the name of the segment right. But this is why we have that, because, sometimes you say these things. And let's have a go at Triple J for allowing Like a Versions. Maybe not so much Emma Wiggle, who somebody said, hey, the Wiggles should do this song. And they went, that'd be fun. Here's my question, Sam. So you've just said, that was difficult to play. If you were in a band currently with other people and you didn't play drums on it, there was no drummer. And they were like, hey, Sam's band, do you want to come and play Elephant for Like a Version? Would you go, fuck it, let's give it a go and play drums on it? Would you have said yes?
I would have said yes, and I would have done probably much worse than I did. So cool. I feel quite apologetic, and I'm sorry. All right,
next segment.
What we're excited about. So this is the part of the show where we have a chat through some new releases, tour announcements, stuff that's coming up that we're really, really excited for. And live music's back, baby.
It's so back. When we spoke about what we're going to do for this segment, I was like, Ballpark Music just announced a tour. I'm super excited for that. And then the Glastonbury
You're seeing Gangs of Youths in a couple of weeks.
Yes, I'm seeing Gang of Youths. I'm so excited for that. There's so much live music going on. Festival announcement feel like they're coming out daily. I can't pick anything out of the mix to like be excited about, just because there's so much stuff.
If somebody wants to donate us hundreds of dollars and a couple of plane tickets, I would very much like to go to Glastonbury. And I'm going to put the lineup. This might be the best lineup of acts I've ever seen in my life, Paul. It's out of control. And like, you know, we're big Billie Eilish fans here. We're seeing her when she's out. We've got our tickets to Rod Laver. We're very excited about Billie Eilish. How big are you when you have the top billing and Paul McCartney and Kendrick Lamar are second and third? But Billy's the first one on the... That's pretty crazy.
Yeah. Paul McCartney is not the headline act.
It's
That's
amazing.
wild.
But it's a great thing that they're doing. Apart from the top four, they have everybody else in alphabetical order. So you're just kind of reading through it. And Australian band Amyl and the Sniffers benefited from having a name that starts with A.
Yeah.
Because they're on it. But some of the lineups are just out of control. The Avalanches, Arlo Parks, Big Thief, Courtney Barnett, Crowded House, Charlie XCX, Doja Cat, Herbie Hancock, Girl in Red, Glass Animals, Robert Plant and Alison Krauss,
It's
Leon
such
Bridges.
a good, like, diverse mix of artists as well. Like, you're getting, Robert
amazing.
Plant and Arlo Parks and, you know...
Diana
Glass-
Ross,
What?
Joy Crooks, Leanne LaHarvest, Little Sims, Megan Thee Stallion, Lord, who's just like buried down there because her name starts with L.
Yeah.
St. Vincent, Wolf Alice, Snarky Puppy, Seafood Mods. Like, I'm just picking them. Sam Fender, Phoebe Bridges is playing, The Pet Shop Boys, Olivia Rodrigo, Noel Gallagher, Mitski, Primal Scream, Rufus Wainwright.
This is wild.
Absolutely out of control. And they're saying that there's going to be more acts announced across more than 100 stages, which is just blowing me away. Like,
I don't understand how this is going to work. Is it going to just be everywhere? Hopefully it's live streams.
Hopefully it's live streamed. Please, Glastonbury, please live stream. I'll pay tickets to the live stream to watch that. I think the Glastonbury 2022 lineup will be up there with Woodstock and some of these other festivals of past. The first big day out was a big one for us. But that's not the only festival going on. Rage Against the Machine are playing Blues Fest up here in Byron Bay. Crazy. We last saw them at the big day out in 2008, and we thought that was the last time they were ever going to tour, but they're back decades later. But the one we're really excited for, Paul, is Groovin the Moo.
Yes.
Because that's here in Bendigo on April 30.
It's, again, phenomenal lineup. And again, it just feels like everybody's like, yeah, I'll do a festival. Yeah, I'll do a festival. Like, obviously, we've been starved of that outlet for so long over the last couple of years. And I'm so glad that people are just saying yes to things. Are Wolf Alice playing?
Wolf Alice are playing. So it's like
Groovin the
the
Moo.
Glastonbury warm-up show. They're coming and playing here. Middle Kids, Montaigne, Peking Duck, Lime Cordial, Mashed and Kutcher, who did, obviously, the Get on the Beers song.
Yeah.
Alice Ivy, Broods, Hilltop Woods, Hockey Dad, Jess War, Psycho Thomas Hedro, there's amazing. It's an amazing, amazing lineup. And that's literally at the showgrounds where we do the markets, Paul.
Yeah.
Like, we sell vinyl there. It's mental.
It's crazy. And again, it's another festival that have gone, bugger it, headliners can piss off, alphabetical, it's nice and equal. I love the inclusivity, and fuck genres. Like, you don't need them. Just like, here's all the people that are playing. If you follow one of those bands, you'll see it from them independently as well. So I think it's really good. Do you reckon we're going to get an influx of bands in the next couple of years that begin with the letter A, or like the number one, and like long names so they take up like a whole row?
It's the smart thing to do, because alphabetized announcements are just the way to go. So like, if you want to be near the top of the bill, a letter, maybe like
let's start a
weird
punk band
symbol.
called AAA Batteries.
Triple.
Copyright.
I love that.
It's mine.
Let's do that. You can't take that off us. Now, we mentioned that Adelaide's been a little bit hard done by. The Fooies are coming back. They played in Geelong last weekend, but they're back. They're going to do a full tour of Australia. Well, as full a tour as you can do without playing in Adelaide, who have missed out again, who often miss out on these big tours. Now, we love the Foo Fighters. They're excellent, but you got to feel sorry for Adelaide here again, Paul.
Yeah. And I know it's like, can you please play Adelaide? Because it means they all come to Melbourne otherwise.
Yes.
Very exciting. Obviously, everybody raved about the show in Geelong, which feels like a great way to like kick off the season almost. And I feel like it's going to be like a festival season that's going to last for like years, just because there's been so many announcements. I don't see how that much music can happen in such a short space of time. I've got to the point now where I'm like, oh, I want tickets to that, and I have to check the dates of other things I've got tickets to, because I'm like, surely some of these must be doubling up. But yeah, it's very, very exciting. I will give another shout out. So we've got Fui's coming, and the day we're recording this, which is Friday the 11th, we'll see when this comes out. You can now find the magic of how long it takes us to put a video up online.
Hopefully tonight, but we'll see.
We'll see.
That's a few beers away. At least.
Aussie band called Planet. We've got the record coming in store. Sam might play a little clip of them now, or not.
That will sound a lot better than me going.
Tell me I don't know, though I heard all your heartaches before.
But yeah, they've got their debut full length released. And again, this was one we were looking through who had albums coming out and ordering some for the shop. And I went, oh, I don't think I've heard them. Put them on, and instantly I was like, yep, get them. I don't care if they're popular because they're great. So yeah, big shout out to Planet. The band, slightly hard to Google, but it's fine. AAA batteries,
Planet.
rename yourselves. You can have it. Planet. If you would like to rename yourself AAA batteries to get yourself up that festival
top of the bill.
You're welcome.
That's a great idea, because that's kind of what the planet is. It's a big battery, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, that's how our current government's treating it. Well, our political talk. So Planet album, check that one out on streaming or buy it on vinyl from us when it goes up online. I'm also going to give a shout out to Franz Ferdinand, who the Greatest Hits comes out, and we've got that on coming in on red vinyl. I forgot how many songs they had, Paul, that were just absolute bangers. And like, we grew up on Franz, Franz, Arctic Monkeys, Block Party, that was Wombats. That was the British generation, that was our kind of like post Britpop thing, and they're up there with Primal Scream as like one of the greatest Scottish bands ever, and there's a lot of hits on this album.
I didn't realize, we chatted before, shout out another YouTube channel that I forgot the name of. Who was the
Trash Theory?
Yes. We both separately watched a video of theirs talking about Take Me Out, and how it sort of kickstarted this sort of new guitar driven pop, as it were. Really influential, because they came out a couple of years before that rest of that sort of guitar driven British pop music was out there, and sort of made pop not a dirty word for people that play guitars, which again, I'm all about. I think we need to revisit that. Don't be afraid of being popular. Like, write a pop tune and do it well, and however you choose to do that, guitar's a no. All for it. But yeah, Franz Ferdinand, exciting. Hopefully they
It's funny, we shouted out like Riot Act and or Yard Act rather, and the band that's the one. And they owe so much to that kind of early 2000s rush of bands like Franz Ferdinand and Vampire Weekend. So it wasn't even just in London, like in the States as well. The Strokes, the Hives, like there's a lot of these kind of like jangle guitar dance bands that all owe
guitar
a lot
disco.
to. Yep, they owe a ton to maybe more to Franz Ferdinand than they do to like Interpol, for example, who, guitar, but maybe not as dancey. But it's excellent band. So like, highly recommend just dipping back into the discography. You'll have a great time.
Yeah,
you'll have a really good time listening to Franz.
And again, yay for Scotland.
Yay for Scotland. Actually, quick shout out for Scotland. I listened to the new Justin Hawkins. I forgot the name of his band now. The Darkness.
Yeah.
If you enjoy just like putting your brain on a hook and not thinking about music for a little bit and having a great time, listen to the new Darkness album. We'll be getting that in on vinyl soon. But there's a track.
It's a lot of fun.
I'm not going to be able to pronounce it properly, Paul. How would I pronounce that track?
I forgot what it's called. What's it called?
Welcome to Glasgow, but with E's instead of.
Well, welcome to Glasgow.
That's the way. That's how it's pronounced properly. But a great song, great album that came out last year. So check that one out as well.
Brilliant. Does that wrap us up? So that's what we are excited about. I hope you're excited about. Leave us comments and stuff about what you're excited about coming up, or any of the other things that we've mentioned, which I've already forgotten about. So remind me.
Yes. Yeah. Remind us by commenting below. Subscribe, like the video, and poll. We'll see them when they flip the side.
Flip your side.
Whoa.